There's an ancient Hebrew prayer, and I'll say it first in Hebrew and then translate it. Wait. Baruch atah Eloheinu ruach haolam mechayeh hametim. Blessed are you, the interbreathing Spirit of the world, who gives life to the dead. We're gathered here to give life to one who, by conventional standards, is dead. We're here to give life to Martin Luther King. And we're here to give life to more than Martin Luther King, through him and through ourselves and through the great interbreathing Spirit of all life. We're here to give life to those who have been damaged, tortured, killed, subjugated by racism, by militarism, by materialism, by the insistence on domination. Those three elements of American society that Dr. King talked about just on the verge now of 50 years ago. Why did he call them triplets? He could have said a trio. He could have said a triad. He could have said three. I don't know if he chose this consciously or not. But there's something about triplets. Even when they're not identical triplets, they all carry big chunks of the same DNA. What is the DNA that racism, militarism, and materialism all carry? It's the DNA of domination, of oppression, of repression. It's the domination of subjugation. That's the DNA. And because the triplets share the DNA, it's up to us not to let ourselves get isolated into a single silo of resistance and creativity. Not even the silo of protection of the earth. If you think about that classic crisis moment that seems to have passed, but after this Friday may be renewed, the struggle of the Sioux at Standing Rock, think about it. They came into action to protect, first, their own sacred earth, the graves of their forebears. Secondly, the sacred waters of the Missouri River, with millions of water drinkers poised in danger. And third, the largest concentric circle of their struggle, the entire earth, about to be even worse poisoned, worse heated, worse burnt by what that pipeline was supposed to carry. The oil that would burn the planet for the sake of billions in profits piled on top of profits already in the billions. Now, let's think about that moment in terms of racism, militarism, materialism. It started with materialism. The pipeline companies and the oil companies behind them decided they wanted this pipeline. And at first, they were going to send the pipeline right by, almost into Bismarck, North Dakota. But white Bismarck said, nothing doing. We're not about to suffer whatever that thing is going to bring about. So racism came into play, and they moved the channel for the pipeline to where they thought, oh, Indians, who's going to be able for them to make trouble? Well, one of the great classic legends of American history got turned upside down. And the Native community found allies, would you believe, ready to support its resistance. And therefore, what happened next? Militarism brought home. Militarism is not only Vietnam. Militarism is not only Iraq. When the police forces take on the weapons that they take, when they can fire a concussion grenade into the left arm of a young woman who had been organizing against pipelines in New York and New England, and then at Standing Rock, and blew her arm to shreds. That's militarism brought home. All of them bundled together in this moment. And here we are with Martin Luther King, who certainly never died this 50 years, but who has clearly drawn new life in this crisis moment of American society. Why are we at such a crisis? I would say, with the other hat I wore and sometimes still wear, a certified historian of the United States, that the government that is about to come into power this coming Friday is the most anti-human, anti-democratic, anti-people government in American history since the presidents who supported slavery in the 1850s. Since the Civil War, we have not faced such a government. Why is it there? 3 years ago, Gloria Steinem spoke at an event sponsored by the Shalom Center, said something that stuck in my head for 3 years, and now, for the last 3 months, has risen up with letters of fire. She said, all of American society is living now at the moment when an abused wife walks out of the household. That's the moment of greatest freedom, greatest possibility, greatest promise, and it's the moment of greatest danger. That's when the abuser may turn to murder. And that's when, if there is a community ready to receive the people who break out of abuse, that's the moment of greatest promise. And she said that before Black Lives Matter, before the Bernie movement, before all over the so-called elite colleges and universities of America, women were demanding a response to a culture that accepted rape. Before all that, here we are. It's almost funny. She said it as a metaphor. And now our oppressor-in-chief is literally, physically, an abuser of women. Who could have imagined the irony, God's irony, of the metaphor becoming physical fact? So who is the reason that we are facing this? We are. Because we refuse to stay inside our different houses of abuse. the black young men and women who said, no, this has been going on now for generations, centuries. We don't stay in that house any longer. The native communities who at Standing Rock and now in pockets all over North America are saying the treaties, they were broken, they were ignored, they were thrown in the trash. No longer. We're breaking out of that home of abuse. The women, the gay community, the immigrant community, all of us. And the hardest one for many of us in this room to swallow and open our eyes to, the folks who think of themselves as the real America, the working class, blue-collar, white men and women who are feeling as if they have been pushed out, marginalized, not only economically, but they can't understand the America that indeed many of us triumphantly said, oh well, we don't need to pay attention to them because there are going to be so many folks of color that nobody will care what they think anymore, which, if you think about it, was bound to enrage people who have thought of themselves as the real America. Well, they ain't the only real America, but they are part of it. And we have got to face that somehow we can affirm the new, not so new, real America, Muslims, blacks, immigrants, LBJ, forgive me with the alphabet, that community, all those Americans walking out of the house of their abuse. We now have to figure out what it means to say to all those communities, there will be no marginalized Americans. None of us must be marginalized. We are all out of the house, and we will turn to see who it is who has been abusing us. And we all have to learn from each other how to do that. And that is what Dr. King was about. In the last year of his life, probably the work that got him murdered, he had already spoken at the Beyond Vietnam. I was taught by a couple of wonderful ministers 2 weeks ago to stop calling it a speech. They said it was a sermon, not a speech. It was a prophetic sermon. Right. Okay, so I've been learning not to call it the speech anymore, but a prophetic sermon. Where did that sentence begin? That the last year of his life included organizing for the Poor People's Campaign across racial barriers and boundaries. It included organizing the folks of West Virginia who, in fact, cast majority votes for Mr. Trump this last election. He was urgently trying to build what some people have called the American rainbow, of all the folks left out, pushed aside, marginalized. And we need to learn to do that. It's not just today, tomorrow, the real and official birthdays of Dr. King that we need to do this work. April the 4th coming is the 50th anniversary of that prophetic sermon in New York. Caused a lot of trouble at the time. Nobody could figure out why Dr. King, who had finally gotten a president of the United States on his side, was now going to attack that president's favorite war. And exactly 1 year after that prophetic sermon, Dr. King was murdered. That year, we hope to make a year of truth and transformation. Not yet truth and reconciliation. Reconciliation in South Africa happened only after the transformation of the end of apartheid. But the year from April 4th to April 4th, we must begin now to begin planning for that year. I'm glad to be able to tell you that this morning, a new website called MLK50, MLK50, 50 in numerals, .org, went online. It is only a beginning and awaits all of us to add to it, but it is a beginning. MLK50, MLK50, to welcome and make alive what might have been dead, what was certainly intended by those who rule America to be dead 50 years ago. And I want to end with, even before Dr. King, the dream, the vision, with bite to it, a verse of a song that most of us know, but this verse we rarely hear and rarely sing. Oh, beautiful for patriots' dream that sees beyond the years thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed her grace on thee, erase the stain of selfish gain from the banner of the free, and end the pain of race disdain. So justice all can see. May the church, the community, the congregation say, Amen.